My chubby girlfriend thinks she's curvy, so I put her in her place. So my girlfriend and me have been together since 2019. She used to weigh about 125 pounds at 5'8". She was pretty thin. The past 13 months, she's gained 25 pounds and now weighs 150. She hasn't had an eating disorder or anything. I think she just naturally gained weight as she got older. She continuously calls herself curvy, and that's just not true. Her chest did not grow with the weight gain, and she's still a 34A cup. Her thighs and butt area did grow a bit, but she's still not an hourglass. I wouldn't be bothered by this if she didn't heavily identify with it. When she was 125 pounds, she kept identifying with how thin she was. At 125 pounds, she was proud that they couldn't see anything on her CT scan when she had appendicitis because she was too skinny. She wants to make a TikTok fashion page dedicated to curvy fashion. I got annoyed with her identifying so much with a body type that isn't even hers. So I said, "You're not curvy, you're chubby." She looked at me stunned. I told her curvy was like Beyonce, for example. She said that she felt like she was curvy because she's not skinny anymore and not fat. I told her, "That's chubby, you're chubby," and she began to cry and left my apartment. It's been 12 hours, and we haven't talked since. I know this was mean, but it was true. I was so frustrated with the idea of her making this fashion TikTok account for a body type that's not hers. Am I the jerk for stating a fact? Are you the jerk? You're obviously the jerk. You seem to know you're the jerk. You actually seem fairly proud that you're the jerk. There's so much to unpack here, it's ridiculous. You refer to your girlfriend getting older when it's been a grand total of 3 years. You make it very clear that her bra and butt size aren't good enough for you, and I don't really buy that it took 3 years for this to be an issue. And what the heck is going on with the CT scan? I have doubts about whether it's even possible to be too thin to show up on a scan, but if it is, that's something to be worried about, not proud of. If she was proud, then you're probably wrong to say this girl never had an eating disorder. Good gravy, just let this girl make her stupid TikTok. It has nothing to do with you. I won't side with the commenter saying this original poster set back his girlfriend's mental health, because that's not his to carry. He should be more supportive of it, but he can't control it. If they're living in their own apartments, I assume she's old enough to take some responsibility for her own emotional life. And the first thing she should do for herself is dump this idiot. Depending on her body type, 150 isn't even that large. I'm sure a thick girl with fashion sense can find a guy who appreciates her more than OP. My jerk boyfriend stole my money and tried to feed me scraps like a dog. I'd lent my boyfriend some money a few weeks ago because of something he needed, and he promised to pay me back as soon as possible. He was supposed to pay me back 5 days ago, but something came up and he didn't. I tried to be patient. Yesterday, we had planned to go out with some friends at night for dinner. After I came back from work yesterday, I was robbed on the bus and had all my money and cards stolen. I canceled my cards, but the bank's customer service told me that my new card with my new details wouldn't be available until the following morning because the banks were closed that afternoon. I had to wait for both the physical card and the digital details for Apple Pay, so I had no money. When I went to dinner with my boyfriend and friends, I asked my boyfriend if he could just pay me back the money, or at least pay for my meal, since I had literally nothing. He didn't exactly say yes or no, just a simple, "Don't worry." As we ordered, he only ordered for himself, and told me that he can't cover for mine at the moment. So he told me I better not order anything and just have some bites from his meal. I was so mad and frustrated because he had promised to give me back the money. He then claimed something came up and couldn't give it back. But then he ordered a nice meal for himself and just told me to get his scraps, all because he wouldn't pay me back, or at least pay for my meal. I'd be the only one sitting there with no meal in front of me. I said, "This is ridiculous." Then I got up and left. Our friends now believe it was very low of me to get up and leave. They told me how I should just be polite and stay there. I can't quite understand that logic, but is there any way I'm the jerk? You're not the jerk for getting up and leaving, but I also won't let you off the hook for showing up to dinner in the first place. You'd just been robbed, and that's awful, but you also clearly never asked anyone to cover your dinner before you showed up, nor did anyone offer. Most rational people would be showing up with plans not to eat. I'm not saying it's unreasonable to think the people who love you might cover your meal. In most cases, they would. It's what good friends do. At the same time, a good friend does not show up simply expecting and demanding charity. And OP's not the only one who clearly shouldn't have been there. Why are any of these people going out for nice dinners when they can't afford a dime beyond what they order? Even the robber in this story is financially irresponsible. Think about it. If the bank was closed, that means she had to have called them to talk to customer service. What kind of lazy thief takes your credit card but not your phone? Must be nice for OP to live in a city where criminals are this incompetent. She should date one of the robbers in my city. They probably make way more than her debtor of a boyfriend. My fiancé hates her swinger parents, so I had her mom arrested. So, wild situation, but I feel like I need a fair judgment. I've been dating Reagan for 2 years, and we have been engaged for the past 6 months. When we first started dating, I realized that Reagan didn't have the closest relationship with her parents, especially her mom, but all her siblings seemed to get along. I didn't really find out why until later. Reagan's parents are part of the swinger lifestyle. Growing up, this was really rough on Reagan. Everybody in her small town knew, and people made fun of her relentlessly. She hated it, but at the same time, they were her parents. Well, when Reagan was a senior, her mom's videos were posted onto a website. Boys in her grade found them and made her life a nightmare. So she immediately went to a college far away where we first met, and she really hasn't had a relationship with them. We live about 30 minutes from them, and we see them only at Christmas. Her parents are always reaching out to her, however, so I've been seen as the guy isolating Reagan from the family. Now I come from a traditional family, church on Sunday types. Reagan fell in love with this and really attached herself to my mom. They've gotten super close. Reagan always talks about how much she likes my normal parents. So Reagan decided not to invite her mom and dad to the wedding. She said she's embarrassed of them and doesn't want people knowing who her mom is. She asked my dad to walk her down the aisle. Her siblings got ticked off at this, so she decided to cut them off as well and not invite them. This caused Reagan's mom to explode. She's called us so many times the last few months and tried showing up at our place. I've had to tell her to leave every single time, as Reagan didn't want to deal with her, which again leads to their image of me isolating Reagan. So this weekend, Reagan was at a bachelorette party. I was home alone. I hear someone at my door. I see that it's Reagan's mom, and that she looks emotional. I spoke through the doorbell and told her Reagan wasn't home and that she needed to leave. She kept knocking and saying, "I know she's in there. I just want to talk." I said again that Reagan wasn't home and that she needed to leave. Well, she walked to her car, parked on the driveway, and made a phone call. At this point, my neighbor texted me and asked if everything was okay, as he had heard yelling. Reagan's mom came back to the door and kept pounding on it, saying she wanted to talk to her daughter. I told her she had 1 minute to leave the property. She didn't. So I called the cops. She was arrested for trespassing. Reagan came back and I told her what happened. She was upset at me, but then she understood once I showed her my neighbor's text and our doorbell footage. Reagan's siblings are furious, however, and so is her dad. I can't help but feel like I did go too far. Am I the jerk for calling the cops on my fiancé's mom? This is a tough one. The original poster was definitely within his rights to call the cops on a woman who wouldn't leave his property after she was told to several times. But he's still kind of a jerk. Let's back up a second. It's terrible that Reagan had such an awful time growing up. Since we don't know if the videos were uploaded by her parents or one of their partners, it's hard to say how much of it's their fault. They definitely should have been more discreet, but that's not even why Reagan didn't invite her parents to the wedding. She was afraid of her mother being recognized. If OP's family is so firmly on the straight and narrow, why does Reagan think everyone at the wedding is going to recognize a random woman from a swinger video that must be years old by now? That's a bit ridiculous. And refusing to so much as speak to her mother? Nothing in this story suggests it would have been dangerous to let her in. You can't have it both ways. If the kids at school were wrong to shame Reagan and her parents back in the day, then shaming them now isn't somehow justified. Throwing some house keys in a fishbowl doesn't make someone a monster. Calling the cops is a lazy way of avoiding tough communication. And given how important difficult talks can be when maintaining a marriage, this couple's future doesn't look great to me. BJ joke. This is just a quick one, as it's really caused more controversy between me and my girlfriend than it should, in my opinion. We were at the cinema last night. It was absolutely packed. Not a single empty seat in the place. Around halfway through the film, there was a lull in the action. The film was very quiet at this part, so any noise or conversation could have been clearly heard. A woman who was sitting around 6 or 7 seats down from us got up. She must have needed to go to the bathroom or grab some snacks or whatever. She slowly made her way through the sea of legs in her way when, unfortunately for her, she stumbled over someone's legs and tripped, falling face first onto my lap. It was only for 1 or 2 seconds, and then she got herself to her feet. She apologized to me, looking mortified. At this point, everyone had glanced over due to the commotion. I could see that she was horrified and embarrassed. Due to my general nature and demeanor, I decided I'd crack a joke to make her feel better and laugh at the situation. So I said, "No worries, usually I have to pay for that kind of service." It worked. Not only did she laugh, but a large majority of the cinema laughed. Anyway, everything was cool. The film was decent, and the plan was for me and my girlfriend to go to a restaurant afterwards. The film finished, and my girlfriend was giving me the cold shoulder, saying she didn't feel well and wanted to go home. I asked what was wrong. She snapped, "Nothing. Take us home. I don't feel well." After chipping away at her on the drive home, I learned what was wrong. It turns out I had been a jerk because I embarrassed her by making a joke that the whole cinema heard and put unwanted attention onto her. I told her, "You had no attention on you. I was the one who made the joke. I don't see what the issue is here." She had no response and hasn't spoken to me since. Now the atmosphere in the apartment is awkward as heck, but I'm resisting the urge to come up with another joke. Am I the jerk here? Should I not have tried to lighten the mood in the cinema? You're the jerk for trying to tell me several times throughout the story what a funny guy you are when your joke wasn't even that clever. I've met guys like you. As long as you can hear your own obnoxious laughter over the crickets, you'll gladly tell others that the whole theater was falling to the floor in hysterics. This OP actually made an edit responding to commenters' doubts that a majority of the cinema laughed. It did not address the fact that, even if they could have heard the joke, it's doubtful many of them even saw what happened to give it context. He also updated to let us know they were seeing a James Bond movie. Literally no one asked, so I remain positive this man is delusional. His response to his girlfriend pretty much sums up the problem. He says all the attention was on him, which is clearly what he cared about far more than trying to help a strange woman maintain her dignity with a lame BJ quip. And being around someone who constantly draws attention to their unoriginal humor is exhausting. Some commenters did find his joke funny, because not everyone's had the luxury of hearing decent jokes before. And when his girlfriend is at her angriest, all he can think about is making another joke. It's honestly hard to believe OP's ever paid for those kinds of services. He seems to spend the bulk of his time sucking himself off already. My fiancé insulted my sister for dropping out of school to sell her body. When I was 14, my parents passed away in a car accident. We had a great aunt who was still alive, but she lived hours away and was considered too old and sickly to have custody of minors. My sister Kate was 19, so she was given custody of me and our little sister. To prevent us from becoming homeless and being thrown in foster care, Kate left school and worked as a streetwalker. Doing that on top of a cashier job was the only way she could adequately pay our rent and buy food for us. It was only for a short time, as it allowed Kate to get enough money to take courses and become certified as a hairstylist. Kate eventually was able to get a GED, and now owns her own beauty salon. But Kate admits her time as an escort was the darkest point in her life. Me and our little sister have never forgotten the sacrifice Kate made for us. At our engagement party, me and my fiancée Lily were talking to Kate and her husband John. Kate talked about how she and John were planning a Hawaiian vacation, hoping to go this year with my 2-year-old nephew Philip. But they decided it would be better to just save for a few more years and focus some of their money on repairs for the salon. I agree that it would also be better to wait because Philip will be older and be able to remember and appreciate the trip. But then Lily sneered at Kate and said, "If you want extra money, you can always quit the salon and go back to being a whore for a living. Not like anyone else can trust a high school dropout with a job." Kate started crying, and John led her away to comfort her. I told Lily to go somewhere else immediately. I didn't care where she went. I just wanted her to leave so I didn't have to look at her. Lily argued, but I snapped at her to get out of my sight until she left. My future in-laws are calling me heartless and cruel towards Lily. They say that Lily's going to be my wife soon, so I can't just send her away every time we have a disagreement. They said I should have done the mature thing by talking rather than publicly sending her away and humiliating Lily. I realized what I did was humiliating to Lily, and it was not the greatest way to handle the situation. But I'm still struggling to look at Lily after knowing she thought that way about Kate. Was I the jerk for sending Lily away? I'm going to be controversial and say that OP's the jerk here. Don't get riled up. Let me explain. A lot of people doubt this story. Unless she got held back a year, it's odd for Kate to be dropping out of high school at 19 when most students finish at 18. It's weird that literally their only surviving family member is a great aunt and that their only financial resources were between Kate's legs. And if OP was 14 when all this happened, how old was the little sister? Because it seems absurd that Kate would actually tell them what she was doing. And what she was doing wasn't smart to begin with. If you want to avoid having your kids sent to foster care, Maybe don't take up a profession that CPS tends to look down on. If this story was real, Kate's a hero, and OP was right to send Lily away. But if the story is fake, OP is 100% the jerk for writing Lily out of it right after she became such an entertaining villain out of nowhere. But what do you think? Do you believe Lily's stilted dialogue and the fact that a streetwalker wound up with a husband named John? Or do you have some doubts that we missed? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Click one of the videos on screen right now.